Here's a question for you. What do these diverse events have in common? Activists destroying works of art in the name of climate change. Corporate journalists losing their mind over Donald Trump. The destruction of cultural icons like Star Wars. Salmon swimming upstream to spawn. Give up? The answer is that all four of these actions are driven by evolutionary instinct, not reason. In fact, the only thing that separates the salmon's actions from man's is that the fish, unlike the hairless ape, doesn't attempt to justify his actions using reason. This reality of why we do what we do is what elephant theory is all about. The biological imperative of all life on Earth is to survive and procreate. What separates man from the rest of the animal kingdom is that his brain has developed additional layers of brain programming that help him in his primary task to procreate. These levels are the group morality level, which governs how we interact with each other, and our logic reason layer, which allows for abstract reasoning. In this way, the human brain is similar to a hierarchical computer in which the conditions of the lower levels must be met before the higher ones can be used. In The Righteous Mind, Jonathan Haidt has described this setup as being similar to a giant instinctive elephant ridden by a tiny rational rider. The elephant represents our two base instinctive drives, and the rider our reason. The rider pretends it's running the show, but in reality, he is only justifying the actions of the elephant. Elephant theory is all about understanding the consequences of the two major strains that evolved at the group morality layer, namely, conservative and liberal elephants. Let's look at both now.
Living in groups offers tremendous advantages in accomplishing the primal instincts layer's goal of survival and procreation.
However, living in a tribe also requires that new codes of behavior be learned. The group morality that conservative elephants evolved is focused on the success of their own herd. The purpose of this evolutionary strategy is that if the herd they belong to is strong and safe, they are more likely to procreate. The 6 moral principles that conservative elephants value to ensure the success of their herds are: care versus harm, liberty versus oppression, fairness versus cheating, loyalty versus betrayal, authority versus subversion, sanctity versus degradation. Conservative elephants strive to construct their herds to maximize these moral virtues, while minimizing the vices as they know that any individual is capable of both. Thomas Sowell calls the recognition of this reality as the constrained vision of human nature.
The constrained vision, I'm quoting from A Conflict of Visions, sees the evils of the world as deriving from the limited and unhappy choices available, given the inherent moral and intellectual limitations of human beings, close quote. So the constrained vision understands itself as constrained by the limitations of reality itself.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
In other words, they cannot proceed as so many do, that good things happen automatically, but bad things are somebody's fault.
Got it. Got it. And then to continue here, the constrained vision, again, quoting from A Conflict of Visions, for the amelioration, improvement of the human condition, the constrained vision relies on certain social processes such as moral traditions, the marketplace, or families. Under the constrained vision, an exemplar would be Adam Smith. Yes. Human nature is flawed, but it's fixed. And the question is, how do we erect institutions that contain our flaws and permit us to live in the best possible society, given in effect the fallen nature of, or the fallen character of human nature? Fair?
Yes, absolutely.
So when you say constrained, it's a vision of human nature itself. Human nature is fixed, flawed, and therefore we operate within constraints, the constraints human nature itself provides. Unconstrained.
The group morality that conservative elephants evolved is the result of having to deal with the limits of reality itself. They are forced to deal with other elephants as they are, not how they wish them to be. Liberal elephants. Conservative elephants gain an evolutionary advantage by focusing on their herd. Their liberal cousins, on the other hand, found evolutionary favor in being open to elephants from other groups. This openness brings evolutionary benefits from increased genetic diversity, which includes greater disease resistance, reduced inbreeding risk, and enhanced adaptability. However, being so open to others forces liberal elephants to ignore the reality that man is an inherently flawed creature. This is why they do not recognize the three herd values that deal with individual flaws. All problems must therefore be the result of oppressive systems they believe they can change. Thomas Sowell refers to this as the unconstrained vision of human nature.
I see. All right, which brings us to the unconstrained vision. When, again, I'm quoting you, when Rousseau said that man is born free but everywhere in chains, he expressed the essence of the unconstrained vision, in which the fundamental problem is not nature or man, but institutions.
Yes.
Would you explain that one?
Well, he has the notion that, that good things happen naturally. And if they're bad things, it's because institutions, including civilization itself, have made these bad things happen. And of course, and I think that's really the implicit assumption behind a lot of things that are said on the left today.
The unconstrained morality of liberal elephants is the result of their evolutionary need to be open to others. They cannot conceive of individuals being flawed, only systems they believe they can control. Let's now look at an example of elephant theory in action. In this clip from the Trigonometry podcast, observe how liberal elephant Neil deGrasse Tyson attempts to rationalize away the reality of sex differences. He does this not due to science or reason, but his evolutionary moral makeup. Throughout this interview, observe how all of his arguments are in the service of defending two liberal elephant beliefs. One is that all human beings are the same, including men and women, and two, any observed differences that would contradict the first premise must be the result of systems that can be changed.
One of your functions over time has been to communicate scientific knowledge to the public.
Yeah.
And that's why I was quite surprised to hear you talk about the idea that we all exist on a spectrum where you wake up one day and you feel like you're more female and more male.
Here, Konstantin makes a conservative elephant argument about the reality of sex differences. Liberal elephant Tyson cannot accept this scientific reality, so he attempts to rationalize it away using the concept of gender.
The XXXY chromosomes are insufficient because when we wake up in the morning, we exaggerate whatever feature we want to portray the gender of our choice. Suppose no matter my chromosomes, today I feel 80% female, 20% male. I'm gonna put on makeup. I'm going to do that. Tomorrow I might feel 80% male. I'll remove the makeup and I'll wear a muscle shirt.
Liberal elephants like Tyson love the concept of gender, as it sounds scientific without being grounded in any kind of objective reality. What Tyson is really talking about here is personality. The fact that Tyson might wake up one day and put on a dress or wear makeup does not change the fact that he is a man.
Why do you care?
Yeah.
What business is it of yours to require that I fulfill your inability to think of gender on a spectrum?
Here, Tyson exhibits the tendency of liberal elephants to be binary thinkers, seeing issues in terms of right and wrong. The real problem is not biological reality. The real problem is you.
Spectrum. My only point was that if who you decide is male and female in the street is a construct of style and trends and what the beauty industrial complex wants you to see, if that's how we establish gender, then maybe some people want to be fluid within that gender.
Notice how Tyson is now completely ignoring biological reality as he begins to talk about the liberal elephant's favorite explanation for differences, namely systems, this time in terms of something he calls the beauty industrial complex.
identify. So they'll wear a skirt, but maybe have a beard, or they'll mix and match that in whatever way
Neil,
you want.
sorry.
Hold on. I'm not. Wait. I'm almost done. So,
Okay.
if a person using the tools of the beauty industrial complex wants to mix and match this,
Yeah.
and they are expressing their freedom in a free country to do so, why is your job to tell them not to?
Okay.
That's my
Here we go.
only point. And so
That's-
I'm speaking of gender expression and the
Yes.
freedom to do so. And
I will tell you why it's
if you want to
why people are
restrict
talking about it.
that, then what country
hold on,
we living
hold
in?
on,
Yeah,
hold
go
on.
ahead.
So
Here, Tyson attempts to argue that the real problem is people not allowing others to express their personality through how they look. This is a straw man, as the real issue is the denial of biological reality and the consequences of that. This is the point that Konstantin attempts to steer Tyson back to.
first of all, I don't know a single person, and we've talked to trans people on the show. We have trans employees at Trigonometry. We've spoken to all sorts of people about this issue. I do not know a single person who wants to prevent people from dressing how they want, or behaving how they want, or choosing any name that they want. However, the problem is...
So you don't, but you know such people are out there.
I'm
know
sure
that.
such people exist in the same way that there are people who
You know
believe that the Earth is flat and so on, but they're a tiny minority.
They exist.
It is
I don't
not
know how
a
tiny they are, given the dialogue today.
Fair
but go
point.
on.
Fair point. However, what I would say is that the conversation in the public consciousness has become prominent not between people who want to defend the right of anyone to dress how they want and the people who want to prevent that. The reason the conversation has become an issue is that we assign and allow certain privileges to people based on their sex. If you are female, you get to go to places that only other females are in, like changing rooms and toilets and so on. If you are female, you get to compete only with people of your sex because females are at a disadvantage in physical competition to males in almost every sport. In other words, we carve out certain areas where your sex matters tremendously, even though we may respect your right everywhere else to believe that you are whatever you are, to dress however you are, etc. So your claim that today you woke up and put lipstick on and grew your hair out long and tweezed out your mustache and whatever, and therefore you are female, has an impact on other people in certain contexts in which that is a problem.
You gave only two contexts. Do you have others?
Sorry, I wasn't finished. And in those contexts, it is essential, people would argue, to protect women from unfair competition and from various risks for which female-only spaces already exist. That's why people are having this conversation.
Okay.
It's not out.
Here, the logic of Konstantin's reality-based argument that there are two sexes who are different causes Tyson some cognitive dissonance. Notice how he starts fussing about two contexts.
Of bigotry.
Do you have more than those two examples? And I'll address each of those in turn. But do you have more than those two? Probably not. Okay. So
The reason why liberal elephant Tyson is attempting to downplay the consequences of ignoring the sex binary is due to his moral matrix. In order to preserve his evolutionary belief that all people are the same, he must see any problems that counter this belief as being small and manageable. Men and women are basically the same, and any differences can be addressed by making changes to the system. This is the square he is attempting to circle.
let me address those two examples directly. I'll address them.
Sports is very important.
You said that. You don't have to
Female-only
repeat.
spaces.
I remembered. But you don't seem to have a third example. So, and even if you do, we presume that would be a very distant third compared to those two cases.
Again, the liberal elephant attempts to minimize the problems of ignoring sex differences in order to support his instinctive need to believe that people are the same. The reality is that society makes countless allowances to manage this reality. Some others might be not allowing trans women to work in women's crisis centers or to go to women's only prisons. Thankfully, Konstantin doesn't allow Tyson to get away with this verbal sleight of hand and points out some more.
No, there's a third one I can give you very easily.
No,
In this country, for politics, we have female-only shortlists for positions in Parliament. Therefore,
I didn't know
if you
about
claim
that. That's interesting. Okay.
well, that's another example. I can give you more. So, female-only shortlists. There are certain targets within corporations for diversity targets to have a certain number of women on the board. Therefore, when you make a claim that you are female, you are attempting, whether intentionally or not, to insert yourself into categories that are deliberately designed to protect women's interests. That is the concern that people have. So there's 4 examples for you there. Please address them.
Sure. So interesting about the parliament. I have to look into that to find out what is it try to ensure the representation of women? Is that the goal?
That's correct.
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
correct.
fine. So it's a perfectly noble cause there. So about personal changing spaces, okay? That's a solvable problem, of course. And we basically have accomplished that here in Manhattan, where I live. Practically all bathrooms are either multi-gender or solo bathrooms, so only one person at a time, or you walk into a space and there's stalls that are closed off, but then you exit the stall and you come to a communal sink, okay?
Yes.
So it's a solvable problem where everyone has a private space rather than for themselves, rather than having a gender private space, okay? It's solvable.
This solution is once again a demonstration of the liberal elephant instinct to change a system when confronted with reality. It's a binary problem that has a solution. Conservative elephants see issues in terms of trade-offs. What are the costs of doing this? Are women comfortable having men in what has been one of their traditional spaces? Does it make sense to make these changes for what is a tiny fraction of society? What about women's change rooms?
With sports, very interesting. There was a case where a woman wanted to be they wanted to disqualify her from an event. And she had very big muscles, and she had naturally high testosterone levels. Okay, and she was genetically female, but unusually high testosterone levels, and so that weirded everybody out. So I'm wondering whether the future of those sports is you don't contest gender with gender, you contest hormone ratios.
Neil doesn't give the name of the athlete in question, but this individual is most likely middle-distance runner Caster Semenya. In his efforts to rationalize away sex differences, he gets his facts wrong. Like Algerian boxer Imane Khalif, Caster has a genetic condition known as 5-alpha reductase deficiency. Under this rare genetic condition, an individual is born with male XY chromosomes, but cannot produce enough dihydrotestosterone to enable typical male genitalia development. Before puberty, these individuals can present as female with outwardly female genitalia. However, in reality, they are male and will go through male puberty. They do not menstruate and take on masculine characteristics. Caster was able to become a father to children with a woman using his own sperm.
Well, hold on a second.
What
But
do
the
you think of
differences physiologically between men and women are not just hormonal. Women have a different hip angle. They have different heart capacity. They have different lung capacity. I mean, there are profound physiological differences, different bone density. We've had...
Once again, the conservative elephant hosts come back to the biological reality of sex differences, which the liberal elephant will attempt to rationalize away by talking about systems.
Okay, so then we
Professional athletes
find
on the show to talk
hold on.
about it.
I don't have a problem with that. So then you find ways to slice the population so that whatever the event is interestingly contested. So, for example, I wrestled in my life. I was captain of my high school wrestling team. It would be unfair for me at 190 pounds, which is what I was back then, to wrestle someone 120 pounds.
Hold on. It would actually be unfair for you to wrestle someone who is also 190 pounds but female.
Let me work my way there. Let me just work my way
Okay.
there because
Fine.
you are. I respect how active your brain is, but I've thought about all this and just allow me to speak it at the rate that I do.
When Tyson states that he has thought about all of this, what he means is that he has conjured up an elaborate rationalization to justify ignoring biological reality, as we shall see.
Okay.
Go for it.
So it would be unfair. So they have in wrestling, they said, let's make weight categories. Okay. So we make weight categories. So I don't wrestle the 120. I wrestle a 190 pounder. So a wrestling match is not just this one person against the other person. It's 10 matches. And each one is intensely interesting because they are matched. Okay? So what the trans conversation is foisting upon us is the need to find ways to slice the athletic universe such that we still have interesting, fair matches. And is it a combination of did you go through puberty as a male and then transition? Did you have puberty blockers? What is your hormone level now if you want to compete? So it requires more creative thought. Rather than saying no to it all, let's be creative about this as we were with wrestling, as we are with practically any other sport. In rowing, there's a heavyweight rowing and there's lightweight rowing. They don't compete against each other. Somebody came up with that to resolve the problem because more than one category of person wanted to compete. So I agree with you, it's an unsolved problem, yes, but it's not unsolvable given what we know about human physiology. So why not rise to that occasion and solve it rather than take your older view of the world and force modern emergent conduct of people to fit that?
Notice here how easily the liberal elephant dismisses the wisdom of the past as well as common sense, even when it is related biological reality. Tyson resists this because it goes against his evolutionary need to see everyone as being the same. The reason why we don't rise to this occasion is because it's nonsense. Men and women are different, full stop. You build your policy based on this scientific reality.
Okay, well, can we just come back to the female shortlist and other opportunities that women are afforded by virtue of being women? And them now being excluded from that because males are entering that competition.
Yeah, so a deeper problem, thank you for bringing that up. A deeper problem there is why were women underrepresented to begin with? What kind of bias exists within Parliament or among the voters, maybe even the female voters, that prevented the representation from being there in the first place? That's a whole other social question that maybe can and should be answered at a deeper level than a quota coming in after the fact.
Oh, I'm not a fan of quotas, but if they exist...
That's how I would address that question.
Hold on a second. That's not addressing the question at all. The question is, female shortlist exists. Should biological males be allowed to enter those female shortlists? That's as simple as the question is.
Yeah, I'm saying I would ask why you have the shortlist in the first place. It's because there's something deeper that's wrong with society, that women are underrepresented in governance. So to say now, to protect that now and not try to get to the root of that problem, I think is the cart in front of the horse. So I would go deeper to that.
Once again, this is another example of liberal elephant Neil deGrasse Tyson being unable to accept the fact that people are not the same, especially men and women. Some professions are overrepresented by women, such as primary school teachers, while men are overrepresented in construction.
Neil deGrasse Tyson's denial of biological sex is not the result of science, reason, or logic, but instinct. Like all human beings, it is his intuitive elephant that decides, while his rational rider justifies. This evolutionary reality of how we really think is what drives most of our political debates today. If you would like to learn more, I've written a concise book entitled Elephant Theory, How Our Subconscious Morality Drives Politics, Culture, and Civilization, which goes into greater detail. Knowing what truly motivates people is a powerful tool in understanding the world around you. Go to elephanttheorybook.com for links to get the book, including for free. I hope you found this video helpful, and I will see you next time.